My name's Charles Mantigi. I work at Reynolds Ford of Norman, and today we have ourselves a oil change and a multi-point and a tire rotation. And so before we get onto that, I'm going to do ourselves a multi-point, just so that way you guys can get an idea of what all we check before the car goes under its routine maintenance. So without further ado, I'm going to get inside and I'm going to check the wipers and make sure the conditions of them are all good. And as you can see, they're very good. There's no streaks. The condition of the wipers are really good. So on that, they're green. Check the horn of the condition horn. Sounds good. All right, with that being said, for the inside, we'll go ahead and open up the hood and check out the inside. Now there's a couple things in here we want to check out. We want to kind of go, I usually like to go from a left to right sweep. I like to check the water, make sure that the washer fluid is good. As you can see, that the container is kind of empty, so what we'll do is we'll fill that up. We'll also check the battery condition, and then we're going to go ahead and open this up. We're going to set this in a proper place, so that way we never forget where the cap is, and in case we do shut it, this will stop us in case it ever does happen. We're going to check the coolant, and then we're also going to check the condition of the engine air filter, and also the condition of the brake fluid. Okay. And as you can see, that it is kind of empty, so we're going to go ahead and fill that up real quick. Filling these up is definitely something that we want to have, especially in the heat of summer. We use a special kind of washer fluid, so that way it doesn't freeze in the winter time. That way it doesn't evaporate in the summertime. It's really good for getting off any type of bug splatters that may happen. So that is good. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to check the condition of the battery. As you can see, this is a fairly good battery. These batteries are usually good up to about 5 years before they do need to be replaced. But as you can see, there's no corrosion. It's just dusty dry, but everything else on it is pretty good. And there's a nice cover over the terminals, so that way it keeps it from getting any harm or getting any type of corrosion on top of it. So on that, the state of health, the battery is good. The battery condition is good. And we're going to kind of give it a little sweep. As you see, there's not much way to get inside of the vehicle to try to check spark plugs or anything like that, but we just want to make sure that the outside of the condition is good. And so we look at the hoses, we make sure that there's no deterioration going on, we make sure that there's any type of oil leak or any type of leaks, stains whatsoever. Next, we're going to go over here and we're going to check the coolant. The engine coolant, as you can see on this side, there's actually a max and minimum, so that gives you a very good identification of where you want the coolant. Any lower than this line right here, then that's considered one to fill up. Any higher, which is max, which is where it's at, is good. Any higher than that, if it starts to get over this line, then we might want to empty some of that out. But as you can see, it's good to go. We'll check the color of it. Yeah, there we go. And we'll open it up, and you can see inside that it looks pink, which is very good. Pink is the color that we want. If we start getting any brown or any other type of discoloration, or any type of buildup on the inside, then a technician will consider that as recommending to the customer a coolant flush. Now, we will go over here and we'll check the engine air filter. These engine air filters are really good to check. There we go. As you can see, this is considered a good engine air filter. These engine air filters want to be usually maintenancely changed out every about 30,000 miles. So this also, I looked and was changed out at 34,000 miles. So it is still pretty good, and there will be a green mark for that one. There we go. Next, we're going to come over here and we're going to check the brake fluid. Brake fluid is going to be kind of a light gold color, which is good. Any other color than that, the technician will recommend a brake flush. but also a full brake fuel flush and brake flush and coolant flush was issued at 32,000 miles. So right now this vehicle is actually pretty good. So you can see the minimum and the maximum of where we want it, and it's probably right about maximum, so that's good. We're gonna go ahead and open it up, check it out. And if you can see in there, it's kind of a gold color, and that's what you want. So that is good. We've looked at the belts, we've seen that everything in there is pretty good. Everything is, there's no leaks of any kind. This vehicle has been maintained well. And so with that being said, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna make some marks here. If we see any oil and fluid leaks. When it comes to the oil and fluid leaks, I'll probably wait until I get underneath the vehicle before I start checking those out. So, but other than that, most of these things right here, windshield and lights, the operations, and was there any cracks? We didn't see any of those, so we're gonna go ahead and mark those. The belts and hoses, most of that stuff from the AC system to the engine cooling system, everything was good on that. So what I like to do is I like to, at least before I check these off, up top is good, but we're gonna get underneath it and see if we can take a look at it and make sure that everything under there is good. Okay, now that we're under this thing, we're gonna go ahead and start the second part of the multi-point. Just check the tire treads, conditions, and make sure that all the hoses, the exhaust lines, that there's no leaks, there's no deterioration, and make sure that everything's good. So I'm gonna grab my multi-point. I got my tread depth here. And I also have a brake gauge. These brake gauges can determine what condition and what grade your brake wear is. If it's in the green, that's good. The yellow, it may need to be brought to the attention of the customer. Red is probably need to change that out now. So let's go ahead and check this out. So what I like to do when it comes to checking the treads, I like to do straight across. 1, 2, 3. And I don't know if you can see, but right now our tread depth seems to be right at a 12, which is a 12-30 seconds, which is really good. Though 12-30 seconds to about 13 or 14, depending on the tire type, can determine as far as how good the tire is. Now this tread depth actually gauge can show you where in yellow and where in red, depending on the size and the tread depth of the tire. So we were at 12-30 seconds, which is in the green, which is good. Let's go ahead and check this out over here. We did 3 across on that one, and as you can see, it's right about the same. Now, 1, 2, 3. So we check the tread of that one, and as you can see, actually, yeah, this is exactly what I'm saying. So the front ones are at 12. These rear ones are right around almost 11. So it's a little under 12 and just a little above. So within another few hundred miles, they probably will be at 11-30 seconds, which is good because we have a tire rotation. Rotating your tires often, probably about every 5,000 miles, keeps your tire wear a lot even, because we know that the engine, the way it weighs, it can make the tread wear on the front different from the back. So we want to kind of keep those evened out. So let's go ahead and check this out real quick. All right. And you can see it's right around the same. Little under 12, little over 11. So the tread wear for the front we had at 12-30 seconds. The rear we have at a little bit under 12, but we will mark those at 11 because anything under that, we're just going to go ahead and round that to the lower number it is. So we're going to go ahead and come over here. And the tire tread depth is all in green, yellow, or red. We saw that they were all in green by the indicators. So the tread depth on all of these will go ahead and be in green. Now, with the the tire wear pattern, as you can see, this vehicle is fairly new, fairly clean. We'll just rub our hands, just kind of make sure that the tread wear looks pretty even, and make sure there's also no nails. And we'll just do a quick scan of that. Okay, that's good. That's good. And while I do these, I also, like I said, check for nails. see a lot of little rocks. Sometimes they can be mistaken for a nail, or sometimes you can mistake a nail for a rock. So you want to be very careful in checking those. And as of right now, all the tires are good to go. So what I will do next, tread wear is good. Now the next thing to do is just the tire pressures to factory settings. Then next we'll check the brake lining real quick, and then after that we'll take a quick scan, and if everything is good, then we can continue with our process. Now this gets kind of tricky. Depending on the type of wheel or rim you have can depend on how tight you can get these brake wear indicators in. But as you can see, there's a lot of wear, or there's a lot of open areas, so that way we can be able to get this into there. So you might not be able to see it from the camera, but we're gonna be sticking this inside of there, and so we're gonna be able to see inside where the brakes are and what condition they're at. And that's a little tough to see, but with this will be able to tell us where. So most vehicles, especially this good and low miles, brake wear is going to be anywhere from, I would say, depending on also how a person drives the vehicle, it could be at a 6mm, 10mm, or 8mm. So we're going to go ahead and start off with an 8, just because with the knowledge that I have, I'm going to be able to know if this wheel has, yep, okay. So we can get inside there. We can go ahead and see if we can get underneath that. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, sweet. All right. Well, we know that the front are at 8mm. That's good for the customer. So it's about the same, 8mm in the front. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and try 8 again. I feel like there might be some more, like it's better than the front, but we'll check. Alright, yeah. So we know that the front have 8mm and the rear has 8mm. Let's go ahead and check this side real quick. So good news is that we have 8mm all around. So we've got a lot of brake wear left on this. So we're gonna go ahead and take a quick scan. We're gonna check it underneath and make sure that the condition of everything is good. So things we like to look for is we just want to make sure that there's no rust or any types of leaks coming from the exhaust. We want to make sure that all the bolts and everything else are on there nice and tight. Nothing's swinging around loose. Everything seems to be pretty stable. We go ahead and check, make sure that there's no wetness, make sure there's no leaks, anything like that coming out. As we have the gas tanks, we want to just make sure that everything is nice and dry, that there's no loose wires, anything like that hanging around. And then we also just going to come and check the condition of everything, make sure that nothing's loose. Everything seems pretty solid. Connectors are good. So we'll go ahead and check the condition of the transmission. Make sure there's no leaks, which there is not. There's no leaks of any kind, which is good, and that makes our job a little bit easier and makes the process go by a little bit faster. The oil pan, we make sure that there's no leaks coming from that or the engine block. We check those, make sure there's nothing happening, which it seems like there's not, which is good. Then we come on over here and we'll check the condition of the steering components, make sure that everything's good to go, make sure the tie rods are good. We also want to check the condition of the boots. I'm gonna go ahead and check the boots. Everything's good. Everything's on there nice and tight. Everything looks pretty clean. So we can come and check over here real quick. You can see where all the stuff is gonna be. Everything's clean and good, which is good. So with that being said, I'd say that this Multipoint gets a grade A. And with that being said, I will mark all the things I saw that were good and the things that were bad, which there wasn't at all, which is good.